Hi everyone, you are Reddit exposed there, enjoy watching.
We met in the laundry room at Armitage, which always smelled of powder and fried toast from a nearby cafe. I didn't have enough quarters for the dryer, and she didn't have enough for the washer. I gave her mine, and in return she offered an app that doesn't accept cash anyway. I'll transfer via Venmo, she said, and smiled, as if this was a normal way to start a conversation in Chicago in the winter. Jess R. $3 for quarters appeared on the phone screen, and 5 minutes later, plus coffee next time. Jess was a nurse on the night shift at Rush. I worked as a product designer in a small Logan Square office. We drew interfaces for logistics and lived in a constant tomorrow release mode. Our schedules didn't connect. She went to bed at 9 in the morning, and I went to the buzzer at 9:30. That's why we started meeting at strange hours, early breakfasts at Lulaw, walks along the empty promenade at Montrose Beach after her shifts, movie screenings at noon. We've been together for almost 2 years. In the first year, everything was easy. Bicycles on 606, jazz at the Green Mill, and a farmer's market on Logan Boulevard on Sundays. She knew where in Uptown the most adequate food was, and I knew where in Pilsen they served tacos without pretense. We rented an old one-bedroom with a corked floor and batteries that were either silent or hissed like a kettle. By spring, we had a common cactus, and by summer, a shared shopping list in our notes. The problems did not come from somewhere above, but, as always, from small things. Her night shifts disrupted sleep even on the days when she was at home. Her body was used to silence at 4 in the morning and coffee at 6. On the contrary, I was starting to get mad at myself because deadlines were being disrupted and I quietly hated Slack notifications. She wanted to enroll in the nurse practitioner program. 2 hours of evening training on weekdays, repetition of anatomy, essays. I wanted to grow up to be a leader, and I was afraid that I would be cut first. We started saying later more often and let's do it now less often. The quarrels were mundane. Who left the dishes in the sink? Why is the thermostat at 72 again? Why did she forget to close the cat's door? The cat was a neighbor's, but lived with us. It happens. One evening, I remember in detail. January. The wine from the lake hits the windows. We sit on the carpet and argue about money. More precisely, about why I paid for the delivery again, even though we agreed to cook at home, and why she bought the too expensive Omega 3. We're both right, and we're both tired. In the spring, Jess received a letter. She was accepted to the program at Madison. Full scholarship, 2 trips a week, part of the classes online, but concentration is needed. She offered to give it a try. I'm staying in Chicago, she be traveling, and I'll decide in the summer. I nodded because it sounded reasonable, but inside, I was empty and anxious. We didn't quarrel when she started driving. We just started living as neighbors on a schedule. The final conversation was not dramatic. At Bang Bang Pie, where there are always too many delicious cookies and too many people with laptops, she said, I'm not dragging my feet for 2 lifetimes. The second one, with us, turns out every other time. You don't deserve this, I reply, and you don't deserve a man who waits all the time. We didn't cry. We didn't slam doors. We agreed on things for her. A kitchen scale and a coffee grinder. For me, a table and a blanket. About the cat stays in our house as he wanted. About money boards and a vacuum cleaner in half. We returned home, put out the boxes, found 5 other people's chargers and 3 checkbooks that we had forgotten about. I spent the first night after she left rearranging the furniture by inches, not to forget it, but to do it differently. I moved the lamp to the windowsill, removed its magnets from the refrigerator, put it in an envelope, did not throw it away, and removed the second brush from the bathroom. A week later, I realized that I no longer wake up at 4 in the morning because someone is quietly walking into the kitchen. There was a different silence in the apartment, not ringing, but working. I went to a psychologist in West Town for a sliding scale program. Twice a month, we said out loud what I had been putting off for years, that it was easier for me to do projects than conversations, that I was confusing caring with control, that everything is fine was a bad answer if you close the subject with it. I started going to the lake more often in the mornings, and I think for the first time I noticed how the water can seem motionless in winter, although it doesn't happen that way. For months later, we ran into each other at Trader Joe's on Divers. She's with a basket and a list. I'm with frozen pizza and greens. A new haircut, tired eyes, the same straight back. We stopped 1.5 meters away, as if the pandemic had not gone away, and said hello at the same time. We talked for 5 minutes. It's like studying. How's the job? Like a cat. No one said I miss you. No one asked what if. She said, you look calmer. I reply, you too. We hugged quickly and correctly, the way people hug when they've hurt each other and don't want to do it again. I didn't become a hero after the breakup. I just learned how to cook for one person and not regret the remaining half of the onion. I set the alarm for Saturday laundry and stopped swearing at the thermostat. It's set to 70 and lives its own life. I turned off notifications in Slack after 8, and once I didn't even pick up my phone on Sunday until lunch. It was scary and pleasant. Sometimes I meet with friends at Half Faker in the evenings. Sometimes I stay at home and read like a normal person, and not like you need to finish reading to a sense of usefulness. A year later, I moved into a ground floor apartment in Avondale. More light, fewer stories in the walls. In the box with the wires, I found the same envelope with magnets. Minnesota, Nez, we can do anything. I thought about throwing it away, but I didn't. I put the past in a box. Tickets to the Green Mill, a receipt from the farmers, a photo from the boulevard, where the two of us are still. Not to cry over her, but to remember what it was like. Memory is not an anchor, but just a folder in the closet. Sometimes people write to me that they saw Jess in Madison, buying coffee after her shift, or that she was speaking at a reunion. I'm smiling. I have no complaints about her. We did everything we could and stopped on time. As an adult, this means not when it's completely easy, but when you can no longer drag on. Recently, a new payment system was installed in the laundry at Armitage. Now there is no cash, only an application. The cars are honking the same way. I stood there, waiting for 8 o'clock to flash, and suddenly it occurred to me that our story was as common as this laundry. You download what you've sold, add powder, select a mode, and wait. Then you take it out and realize some things have been washed, some require a different temperature, and it's time to give some things away to second-hand stores, neighbors, and trash. It's not dramatic. This is life. If there's a moral to this story, it's boring and honest. In America, it's easy to believe that everything can be put together in the right montage: coffee, jogging, work, sunset. We did it. In fact, something else is more important. How did you say no at the right moments? How did you return the keys? How did you share the dishes? How did you know how not to write "Where are you?" after midnight? And one day we met at the pizza freezer, said hello without knots in our throats, and went on. Everyone in their own row. In the spring, I finally completed the someday list. I changed the gasket under the faucet, screwed on the normal hooks in the bathroom, brought a folding table to the basement instead of writing at the kitchen counter again. The psychologist said, let's try to meet once a month. It looks like you're doing well. I nodded, and for the first time, I wasn't afraid of that less often. I started going to the Logan Square Market on Saturdays. I take the eggs, the greens, the filter from the guy with the coffee trailer, and a donut for the track. Sometimes I meet people I know in the area. We exchange a few phrases about the weather and parking. No one asks how personal, and it's strangely pleasant. It's like I've learned to live between events. One day, Armitage ran out of quarters again, not me, but a girl with a box of things and a funny hat with a pom-pom. She was nervous because the machine wouldn't start and time was running out. I gave her 4 coins and said, you get it, you transfer it, or you don't transfer it. It's not a big deal. She laughed, asked for a QR code, transferred $5 for saving the morning, and ran off to call someone on the street. I found myself not looking for signs in this. I just helped and went back to my typewriter. It seems that this is growing up. To do normally and not write an essay about it. In the summer, the former team leader called. Do you want a more boring but stable project? I agreed. There's less burning, more let's count. I started leaving work on time, and the world didn't collapse. In the evenings, I ran to the lake or rode my bike along the embankment to Montrose and back. Sometimes it's jazz at the Green Mill, sometimes spear at the Half Acre, sometimes it's just a windowsill with a book. At some point, I noticed that there was not a single waiting sound in the apartment. The phone does not beep at night, the kettle does not scream when it boils, the thermostat is not discussed, it is at 70. Period. In the fall, Jess sent a short message on Instagram. A photo, a bathrobe, and the caption past the last module. Thank you for not holding back then. I replied congratulations and liked it. Without continuing, I had a chance to ask for coffee, but I didn't take it, and I didn't feel like I was missing anything. It's not coldness, just the right distance. I've made a little habit of cooking something a little more complicated than an omelette on Sundays. I invite 2 or 3 friends once a month. We eat, we argue about sports, movies, taxes, then someone washes the dishes, someone takes out the trash. No big drama, just a normal life in which everyone has something to do with their hands. Sometimes I think that's exactly what I needed. Not fateful conversations, but an apron and a towel at hand. At the end of the year, the signs in the laundry room were changed. Now each car has a sticker with time and tips. I looked at someone on Reddit and made the same ones at home. A small note on the refrigerator: dry the towels, pour the monster, do not read comments after midnight. It's stupid, but it works. The psychologist and I closed the cycle in January. He asked me what I was taking with me. I thought about it and said, the ability to finish on time. He nodded, and it's time to start. He shook hands, without symbolism, just for business. On the same day, I went to Trader Joe's. The freezing section, as always, blows in the face. Near the pizza, I suddenly remembered our conversation with Jess last year, the same row, the same boxes. And I realized that I was no longer waiting for a meeting or an explanation. I'm standing in front of a shelf, choosing a margarita or a pepperoni, and I don't have the feeling that anyone's fate depends on it. It's funny, but it's also freedom. At home, the machine turned on the cycle, beeped 0 o'clock, and the door clicked. I took out my things, laid them out on the table and began to fold them. T-shirts to t-shirts, towels to towels. I sent something for drying, a couple of things for dressing, one in a package to give away. An ordinary ritual that has a beginning, a middle, and an end. If this story needed to be finished, it's like this. I put the basket in the closet, turn off the light in the kitchen and go to bed, feeling calmly tired. Tomorrow there will be a market, work, a message from mom about the snow, maybe a movie. Maybe someday there will be us again. Or maybe not. Anyway, I have an apartment that's quiet, people to eat soup with, and I'm not the worst neighbor for myself. I close the door from the inside, check the thermostat, set the alarm, and think a simple thing. Every story has a place where it's wise to leave it alone. I left ours. I'm continuing my work. In the spring, when the ice at the shore began to flake and the seagulls were cursing over the embankment again, everything suddenly clicked into place, not loudly, like a night light switch. I was on my way to the Logan Square Market, and at the coffee trailer I met the girl in the hat with the pom-pom. She handed me a roll of quarters tied with a blue elastic band. For that morning, she said, and for not making a story out of it. We smiled, exchanged names, and went about our business. No hints, no what if. A pleasant, level place to live, where you owe no one anything but politeness. On the way back, I stopped at Armitage's and taped a piece of paper over the change machine. If you don't have enough, take it. If there are any extra ones, leave them. I left those coins under it. Someone else's laundry is not my temple, but you can also put a little order there. A week later, it was already warm. My friends and I gathered at my place. I made soup, baked something like focaccia. It turned out uneven, but it smelled like home. We were arguing about baseball. Someone was washing dishes. Someone was fixing a rickety chair. At some point, they asked, "How are you doing?" I shrugged my shoulders. It's fine. Sleep. I eat. I write a little. It's enough. At night, while putting my jacket in my pockets for the off-season, I found an old receipt from Trader Joe's. On the back is my handwriting. Last year's note meat. Talk. I looked at it, sighed, and dropped a piece of paper in the trash. Not anger. Not a theatrical close gestalt. Just the expiration date. A few days later, Jess and I missed each other on Damon. She was walking with the dog, and I was walking with a shopping bag. They saw each other and nodded. The dog pulled her further, and I held the package more comfortably. And it became clear. We both did it. No scenes, no ifs. Sometimes adulthood is all ellipses, pronounced with a nod. Meanwhile, the work went on at its own quiet pace. In the new project, no one wrote SOS at 2 in the morning. The reports were stacked in neat folders, like my t-shirts after drying. On Fridays, I still turned off the equipment for half an hour. The silence straightened my shoulders. 2 more stickers appeared on the refrigerator. Pour the monster and do not read comments after midnight. Nonsense, but they keep the course. The psychologist wrote once a month. How are you? I replied with a smiley face and one line. On schedule. He replied with excellent and did not impose. It seems to be the best form of caring, the kind that you notice without opening the door wide. On Sunday, I rode my bike to Montrose, sat on a concrete block, and watched the water stitch the shore with short stitches. I opened my notes on my phone and wrote 3 lines, not about me and someone else, but about how spring smells at a lake and how a bicycle chain thanks for a drop of oil, without trying to say the main thing. The main thing is that it happens. At home, the machine beeped 0 o'clock and gave away warm clothes. I put them in piles, put the basket in the cupboard, and turned on the kitchen light. The phone showed the weather for tomorrow. Mom sent a photo of snow from another state. Friends, next time with us. I set the alarm, checked the thermostat, and as I was already turning out the light in the hallway, I caught myself thinking a simple thought. The ability to finish on time is not about a point, but about a door that you close without slamming. I've closed this one. I'll open another one tomorrow. A market, a job, soup, maybe a movie. Maybe someday there will be us again. Or maybe not. Anyway, I have an apartment where it's quiet, people to eat soup with, and I'm a perfectly tolerant neighbor myself. I lay down, listened to the steady hum of the city, and said to myself in a whisper, like a password that I'm not afraid to forget anymore, I'm here. And that's enough. Jewel Losco. At the weekend, friends invited me to ride along the embankment. One guy's chain came off at the bridge. We threw it on in silence. Our palms are covered in black grease. The snow turns into water under the wheels. He said, "Thanks, man," like it was something special. Nothing special. It's just that they helped me once too. A couple of weeks later, I met the girl in the hat with the pom-pom again at the donut stand on Armitage. We already knew the names. Her name is Maya. We exchanged a few phrases about the weather and donuts. Then somehow it just happened. Is coffee nearby? Do you have time? We are going. Without winks at fate, without promises for the ages. Just to people with hot glasses who are in no hurry to fill the pauses. The cafe talked about the simple. She's talking about the night shifts at the printing house. And I'm talking about my half-hour of silence on Fridays. At parting, I did not ask for the phone out of a do not miss reflex, but offered, "Next Saturday is the Logan Square Market. If you want fresh apples, I'm there." She nodded. "We'll see about the shift." We parted quietly, like people who already have a life. Saturday came by itself. I went to the market anyway, to get apples and the usual mows of the stalls. Maya came too. We bought a bag of cider, stood by the musician, and discussed why real apples aren't perfect in appearance. Then we just walked a block in silence. The silence between us turned out to be even, working, the same as the one I arrange at home, turning off the equipment. In the evening, I wrote 3 lines of notes, not about Faye, and here it is, but about how snow sticks to the railing on the stairs and how a paper cup warms the palm of my hand. I didn't send it to anyone. Not everything has to become a message. In the winter, the therapist sent another "How are you?" And for the first time I replied not with a smile, but with a sentence, stable, without drama, with plans for tomorrow. He sent, "Great." I thought that was the right word for me. Jess and I crossed paths a couple more times, always with her dog and my shopping bag. They nodded. One nod conveys more respect for the past and long letters. I'm happy for both of us. A warm lamp finally hung over the table in the apartment. I turned on the dimmer and caught my light level. There are 2 new stickers on the wall. Water the monster and don't be a hero. On the refrigerator door is a magnet with a lake, bought on the way from Montrose. Nothing symbolic, just a house. Sometimes Maya and I cross paths at the market, sometimes we don't. When we cross paths, we walk. When not, everyone has their own business. I like this grammar. Fewer exclamation marks, more commas. So far so good is a great phrase. The night before Christmas, I went out on the balcony, listened to the muffled hum of the city, flipped the dimmer half a notch down and whispered to myself like a password, which is both the finale and the sequel at the same time, "I'm here." That's enough for me. And then we'll see. In the spring, the city finally thawed. The ice had come off the curbs, and my house smelled of wet earth and gasoline again. I was walking out of the laundry room, change jingling in my pocket, and a warm glass in my palm, when I noticed that it wasn't my note that was already hanging on the change machine, but someone's new laminated one with the same text and a neat line at the bottom. "It works thanks to you," without a signature. That was enough. Jess and I met again at the post office. A dog in funny shoes, a short hello, A short "how are you?" I reply. It's fine. She also. And the smile is not out of politeness, but like people who no longer need to prove anything. On Saturday, Maya and I were assembling a shelf from IKEA. One sheet did not match. We turned the diagram over, shrug our shoulders and put a fold of cardboard. He's holding up. We ordered noodles and ate from the boxes. She'd left her hat on the back of a chair, whether she'd forgotten or on purpose, I didn't bother to guess. I just hung it next to mine. In the evenings, I still turn off the equipment for half an hour. Sometimes we are silent together. Sometimes she talks about night shifts, and I talk about a teenager who wrote "almost not afraid" for the first time in a year. We don't plan on forever. We're planning a market on Sunday and a call to Mom on Tuesday. The therapist asked, "What do you want next?" I said, "Stability, small things, and that the lamp turns on at the first click." He nodded, as if it were a Nobel Prize ambition. I went out and bought a regular extension cord. The lamp started to turn on from the first. Sometimes I get an SMS from an unknown number with a photo of a changing machine and my old phrase, apparently, someone sent the contact through friends. "Yours works in our area," they write. I answer great and turn the phone screen down. Let him work. Maya and I don't swear vows to each other. We're making an agreement. I'm on shift tomorrow until 3. Then the apples are at 4. She nods. I take out 2 paper bags and write with a marker pen. Sour and sweet. Simple logistics that strangely keeps life in shape. For the first stormy day, I went out on the balcony, turned the dimmer half a notch and caught my light. The city hummed steadily. I inhaled the smell of wet asphalt, checked if I had watered the monster, and wrote only one thing on the yellow sticker: "That's enough." This is the finale I was ready for. No fanfare, no big speeches. I live here. I have keys, a lamp, a market on weekends, and a person with whom I can walk in silence and not rush to explain. I'm at home. And then we'll see. In autumn, the city began to smell of leaves and coffee stronger than usual. In the morning, I measure time with mugs again, but without counting. I just pour and listen to the water become quieter. Someone had screwed a transparent pocket for notes on the change machine at the laundry. Inside, someone else's short "thank you," and my old one, blurred with moisture. "Take it if you don't have enough." It works without me, and that's the best sign that I've finished what I started. Jess and I crossed paths at the farmer's market. She chose quinces, I chose apples, and we exchanged 2 phrases. The smiles were normal, not museum-like. Her dog sniffed at my sneaker. I said, "Cool shoes," and she laughed. "Now it doesn't slip." And she went on. Me too. At home, Maya and I screwed a hook on the door for her hat and my backpack. It took 7 minutes, but for some reason, it was after that the apartment began to sound like a place where people live. On Fridays, we still turn off the equipment and sit in silence. Sometimes we are silent. Sometimes we read the announcements from the district chat aloud. The cat is lost. I give the extra marshmallows. I need a screwdriver for the evening. Almost always everything is found. At work, a boy from my group brought a cardboard box on which he wrote with a marker, "Almost I'm not afraid." He asked me to hang it at the entrance. He hung it up. Another added next to it, "Almost, it's a bridge." I didn't rule anything. In the evening, the first snow and rain began. I checked the windows, turned the dimmer half a notch and put the kettle on. Maya came later, put her hand on the back of my head and said, "Warm." We ate soup out of boxes, laughed at how crooked the shelf of IKEA scraps was, and agreed that on weekends there would be light bulbs in the hallway and a movie without an ending, so that we could figure it out for ourselves. Before going to bed, I went out on the balcony. The yard hummed steadily. Steam and powder wafted out of the laundry room window. I thought that this was probably my ending. Not an item in a book, but a set of small switches, a light at the door, a hook under the hat, a note on the machine, the word "almost" on a cardboard box. Everything you need to finish every day. I went back into the room, flicked the lamp the first time and whispered into the void, not for effect, but to fix it, "I'm here." And that's enough. The next day, I woke up before the alarm clock, not because of the alarm, but because it was quiet. The rain had eaten up the last of the snow at night, and there was that gray light in the window that makes you want to cook something simple. I put the kettle on, took yesterday's soup out of the fridge, and while it was warming the stove, I copied onto a clean cardboard what had been on my tongue for a long time. Finishing is about small things. I taped it to the closet door. next to Maya's grocery list and the crooked heart she'd drawn out of boredom. We went to the hardware store. Light bulbs, a bag of dowels, a hook stronger than the one that holds my backpack. Maya was arguing with the consultant about the tonality of the light, and at some point I caught myself thinking funny thoughts. Before, I would have tried to straighten it out, to prove that the right one was warm or cold. Now I was just standing with a basket and thinking how cool it is that we have the luxury to choose the shade of evening light. They chose soft white. I saw a cheap door closer at the checkout and took it without looking. For some reason, it's important to me that the doors close softly. By lunchtime, we changed the lamps, screwed in the hook, and hung a small shelf above the table for temporary things: skis, headphones, and a glove that had lost a pair again. The room seemed to sigh. We turned on the dimmer halfway, and the light turned out to be exactly on here, not on holiday and not on emergency. I did go to the laundry in the evening. The change machine's transparent pocket was already full. Someone had taped another one to it, with a green stripe. Inside are crumpled thanks and one piece of paper with a child's handwriting. I returned 3 because I found it. I took a picture and sent it to Maya. She replied immediately. We live normally. On the way back, I met Jess, not on purpose, not like in the movies, just on the corner near a bagel stand. She was wearing a beige hat, carrying a bag, and a dog in funny boots was splashing through puddles. We stopped for half a step. Hi. I said. Hi. She said. I saw your cardboard box outside the school, almost 'tis a bridge. It's beautiful there now. The kids wrote it. I reply. I just held the scotch. She nodded, smiled without a trace, and added, I have a door closer now too, the kind that doesn't clap. I wanted to say too much about time, about how the anger had worn off, about how we both couldn't wait then, but the only thing that came out of his mouth was, it's a good thing. We waved to each other and left. I didn't turn around. The body chose its own pace, like water in a kettle. A week later, I took the guys from the circle on a small field expedition to an empty schoolyard on a weekend. We brought chalk, a plastic tape measure, and a pack of cardboard. The task was childish. Catch almost while no one is interfering. A girl in a red jacket drew a circle on the asphalt and wrote, it's almost spring when the puddles are already turning black. A quiet guy who always sits by the window wrote with a marker, almost I'm not afraid. I gave him a piece of transparent tape to attach himself. He attached it without flinching. After class, I went to the library. The librarian, a woman with a quick hairstyle, handed me a box. It's about your project. The neighboring house collects short ones. They want to hang it in the entrance. They came up with it themselves. The box contains cards from neighbors, the ones where people admit not to big things, but to simple things. I gave the drill on time. I called my mom. I didn't reread the correspondence. I went through these notes and realized, this is my genre, everyday tenderness, a thing that you can reach with your hand. December was marked by creaking stairs and changing filters in the cleaner. I started writing small columns for a local free newspaper, not about politics or restaurants, but about useful things, how to ask neighbors for sugar so that it doesn't look like an invasion, where to hang a hook if the wall is hollow, why sorry to bother you is sometimes a harmful phrase. The editor typed without edits and put a column on practical warmth at the bottom. I blushed every time, but I kept going. There was still soup cooking at the center on Tuesdays, and I learned a dozen new stories that shouldn't be shared, except in other people's words. It was easier today. Closer to the holidays, Maya and I bought a ridiculously tall Christmas tree, exactly matching our dimmer. The decorations were made from what was there: wrappers, paper clips, a piece of white rope, on which we once fixed the first almost cardboard. In the evening, when we turned on the garland, the doorbell rang. An unknown woman with a bow of about 7. We're from the 3rd entrance, she said. This is for you over the bridge at the school. She held out a cookie container. Maya invited them for a minute. The bow touched our funny Christmas tree, said cool, and they left. And in the container, between the ginger men, there was a small piece of paper. Almost. It didn't fail. It almost worked out. I left it next to the kettle. At work, they asked for results at the end of the quarter. Previously, I would have written a 10-page report, but now I have sent for points. 1. People say hello more often. 2. There are almost always coins on the exchange machine. 3. The door in the laundry room stopped slamming. For the child wrote almost I'm not afraid. The supervisor replied with a smiley face and continue. I continued. Jess and I didn't cross paths closely anymore. One day I saw her from afar. She was walking with someone tall. The dog was wearing boots again, and I felt calm from the fact that everything was working out for people. I took my phone out of my pocket to text Maya to buy milk, and I thought, what a luxury is when the main impulse of the day is to remember about milk. In January, a minor problem occurred. It flowed over our bathroom. The manager habitually suggested staying at home from 9 to 6. The master will come in. I wrote briefly to the chat at home, who has experience, how not to sit all day waiting for the mythical master. In response, I received 3 neighborhood life hacks, a general schedule, and an hour later I knew that the master would come to the window at 12:30 to 13 o'clock. I arrived at exactly 12:42, screwed in a new gasket, and asked where we got such a convenient hook at the door. I gave you the address of the store. He smiled and said, we need to take it. By February, Maya and I had acquired another habit. On Fridays, when we turn off everything, we take out an old blanket, sit on the floor and read aloud the short books of strangers from that very box in the library. Sometimes hours get there. I recognize the handwriting of the guys, the intonation of the neighbors. Maya chooses, I listen, and at some point I realize that this is my scripted finale. When you hear the world so close that you don't even want to dot it. In the spring, I suggested that the school hang a small lamp on a sensor at the entrance, the one so as not to stumble into the darkness. The director waved it off at first. The budget. I brought mine from the hardware store. Without further ado, they hanged me. The first thing the guard wrote in the evening was, now it's not scary to do the rounds. I forwarded it to Maya, and she replied, your genre has worked. In the end, the story didn't end where I had been looking for it for a long time, not in a conversation about how it was, not in what if, not in we could. It ended at the moment when Maya and I were returning home late at night with empty bags, just walking. And I suddenly had a strong desire not to stop at the entrance, but to walk another block, look at other people's windows, where someone was also turning a dimmer, someone was arguing about the tone of the light, who was screwing on the hat hook. We walked in silence, and I realized that everything that needed to be returned had returned piece by piece. Patience, curiosity, the ability to laugh at a crookly hanging shelf and immediately take out a screwdriver. At home, I flipped the lamp again, and it lit up the first time, without flickering. I put the kettle on, took out the cookie container from the third entrance, and chose the most uneven little man. He opened the box by the green lamp, where the letters used to be, took out a blank card and wrote in large letters, as on a sign, the finale is when the light turns on where you are. I signed it small, for myself, I'm here. We're here. That's enough. And maybe someday I'll write a book about it. Or maybe not. Because it seems that I finally have a life that does a great job without unnecessary descriptions. She knows her keywords: wait, hold, finish, ask, smile, turn down the lights. And these words are better than any denouement.